No, Catholic. Yeah. But you know, that's what you okay, thanks. Okay, thanks. Do you want that? Miss that person to the question we have for members, we need at least 5 to start.
We're ready to start?
No, not yet. Still need
Okay, just give me a heads up when we're ready. Thanks. So I'm going to start with him as the alternate. Michelle is planning to be here. We give her another.
I think we can get started. I'm going to start work. Sarah, we got your message about audio. Is it better when we're speaking directly into the mic versus having a Skype conversation?
I can hear you a little better, Heather, but it's still like there's some like synthesis of your voice that's making it sound a little weird. So I can hear, like when Greg talked, I could hear him very, very clearly.
Yeah, he's not in the room.
Yeah, he's not in the room,
Yeah.
but there's some, but I still like, even you sound like there's kind of like some skipping in the way your voice is coming through.
Okay.
She's just extra happy today. So we do have quorum and can start the meeting now.
Thank you so much. And we'll do our best to keep the audio as good as it can be in the room. I know sometimes it's difficult because usually it's a single microphone. Good morning, Greg Clifton, City Manager. I'm in our Public Works facility today. We're hosting a budget retreat with our council, and I ducked out to attend this very important meeting. We do have a quorum. There's no need for a roll call at this point, Rhonda, correct? We're just ready to go right into this. We do roll? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we'll call the meeting to order and let's have roll call, please. And thank you for that, Rhonda.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the TAC. Coconino County, Tiffany Kerr.
Good morning, everyone. I am here.
Good morning. Coconino County Citizen Representative Carol Covington.
I am also here.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Greg Clifton.
Here, thank you.
Thanks. City of Flagstaff Citizen Representative. We are expecting Michelle James. We do have her alternate on Zoom, Carlton Johnson. Carlton,
Yes, here. Hello.
thank you. Metro Plan, Dave Wesson.
Good morning, I'm here.
Morning. NAU, Aaron Stom.
Good morning here.
Good morning. Our NAU student from ASNAU, Maria Matchler, is also expected. She said she might be a few minutes late. CCC, Kurt Stoll.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Economic Development Citizen Representative, Gail Jackson is excused. We do have our attorney, Cameron Stanley, joining us. Cameron?
Hi, happy to be here.
Good morning. We do have a guest from the city of Flagstaff for a presentation, Sarah Dector.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, Sarah. And with that, I'll turn it, well, we do have members of Mountain Lion here in the room and on Zoom, and I'll turn it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Again, good morning, everybody. Happy February. Okay, I think we have, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I know we're going to be getting into some recognitions here. So can we pull up the agenda? Safety minute.
Actually, if we can do this safety minute first, sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. Safety minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Transit Advisory Committee. February is American Heart Month, a time when all people, especially women, are encouraged to focus on their cardiovascular health. This Heart Month, the Division for Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention is encouraging everyone to listen to their hearts and speak up for their health. Women in the United States are experiencing unacceptable and avoidable heart-related illness and death. And nearly half of U.S. women do not recognize that heart disease is the leading cause of death for women. Every single year, there are 735,000 Americans who suffer from heart attacks. According to the Centers for Disease Control, of that number, 525,000 of them are first-time heart attack victims. Heart disease and heart attacks are an unfortunate reality in our country. There is a good chance that sometime in your lifetime, you will witness someone suffer from a heart attack or you yourself will become a victim. Here are a few things you can do to prevent heart disease. Eat a healthy, balanced diet. Be more physically active. Keep a healthy weight. Give up smoking or tobacco. Greatly reduce your alcohol consumption. Work with your doctor to keep your blood pressure and your cholesterol under control. Keep your diabetes under control and take any prescribed medication. Please take your heart health seriously, as we all wish to see you at work for a long, long time. Thank you and welcome to the February Transit Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you for that very important message on an extremely important topic. Love the safety minutes, and thank you so much for all that valuable information.
Thank you.
Indeed. Okay, moving on. Next item.
Sorry, we're trying to, we're gonna adjust the microphone in this room and see if we can't improve the audio quality for those on the phone. Or on Zoom. Give me 1 second.
No problem. Thank you.
The Logitech microphone. Up top. Microphone. This is a test. Is it better?
It's clear, but it's very faint.
Yeah. Did you go back to the owl? Okay, you don't need that. Okay. So for everyone who's presenting, we're on the microphone up in that camera. So if I'm over next to the microphone, is that better, Greg?
On my end, yes. Let's hear from somebody else who's listening in here. Is the audio better out there?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Perfect.
so we will all yell at the screen for you today. Sorry about that. All right, so good morning, advisors. I'm here today to present on milestone anniversaries. We have 2 this month. Lisa Connor, there on the left-hand side of your screen, has reached her 5-year anniversary with Mountain Line. Lisa has spent her entire time at Mountain Line as eligibility specialist, coordinating certification of eligibility for use of Mountain Line's paratransit services by individuals with mobility difficulties. In the case of our taxi program, Lisa is extremely dedicated to ensuring rider taxi funds are available to help maintain their independence in their travels, sometimes requiring work outside of usual business hours. Lisa regularly receives commendations from both paratransit clients or their families and caregivers for her helpful and caring approach to both their mobility concerns and their personal well-being. Thank you, Lisa, for your valuable contribution to our team and operations. Our second milestone anniversary is Andrew Everett. He's on the right-hand side of your screen. He is appropriately nicknamed Ace. He is Ace of our mechanic team. He has reached his 15th anniversary with Mountain Line. Andrew has played a pivotal role in numerous successful projects, showcasing not only his mechanical expertise, but also leadership qualities that serve as an inspiration to the entire team at Mountain Line. His approach to challenges with a positive attitude, coupled with his willingness to share knowledge and provide assistance, has earned him admiration within the organization and outside. Andrew has played a significant part in creating our in-house maintenance program and was actually key to our ability to bring our fleet maintenance in-house many years ago. Andrew has earned the tremendous respect amongst our team and throughout our industry, regularly being called on, even by our bus manufacturers, for advice and assistance in problem solving. Andrew, we are grateful for your invaluable contribution to our success, and congratulations. So thank you for letting me share those milestone anniversaries. I have one more significant event to share. Jim Wagner, who has been operations director at Mountain Line since 2006 and was part of really the launch of Mountain Line services in 2001, has decided to retire. Jim has been an important part of many things at Mountain Line. The launch of Mountain Line in 2001, the launch of Sedona Roadrunner in 2006, the introduction of Birdie Links in 2009, the onboarding of Cottonwood Area Transit System in 2011, the launch of Route 10 in 2011, the revamp of Cottonwood's programs in 2012, and many other critical moments. He was part of the team that actually hired me in 2002 and part of the team of hiring individuals for most of our team members. We will miss Jim's quick wit, unabashed laughter, his sincere care for work and team members, and even his selfish theft of our French fries, mostly mine. I am selfishly sad to report Jim's decision to leave, but it has been my honor to work with Jim, to learn from Jim, to call for my friend, sorry, and to plan his celebration. Sorry. I'm working with Jim to determine when he will be available to join us for cake and a lot of laughter to celebrate his career. That's all I have for you.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Congratulations to Lisa and Andrew for their anniversary dates, which are significant, and congratulations to Jim, and a heartfelt thanks for the wonderful service over such a great tenure. And I want to share that I think it's entirely appropriate to have a little bit of emotion displayed as we go through these. I have often struggled with that, and I've come to the realization that no, it shouldn't be a struggle. These are emotional moments as we say goodbye to our peers and wish them the very best in their new chapters. We would not be humans if we went through these exercises without having some emotion attached to them. So thank you for that presentation. Any other comments here before we go to our call to the public? All right, thank you for that. And do we have any public comment here?
We do not have anyone in the room for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. No public comment. We will move on. I believe is the next item the introduction. Oh, we have approval of minutes. We have housekeeping matters here. The approval of the TAC minutes from January 4th of this new year, 2024. Any comments on this?
This is Carol. I would move to approve.
Very good, Carol. Thank you for that.
Dave, I will second.
Thank you for that second. With no additional discussion, we can go ahead and vote to approve these. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, we have our minutes approved, and thank you so much for that. Review of the draft board. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip over something, or were you ready for the presentation? Okay. Draft board business agenda. Now, this part is the City of Flagstaff Regional Plan 2045 update. Really honored to have, I assume it's going to be Sarah Dector in our company here to walk us through this. Sarah, good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you to Heather, Estella, and the staff of Mountain Lion for inviting me to speak to you today. We are at a point with the Flagstaff Regional Plan update where we just completed a round of public engagement on scenario choosing. For those of you who've been following the process, and those of you who haven't, scenario choosing is a key step in building a new future growth illustration for the region. Which of course ties heavily to our road network and Mountain Lion's permanent transit network, which is something we developed from the last regional plan as a baseline. So Estella had asked me while we were working on this to, as soon as we kind of had a first update from what we learned, to bring it to the spot group so you all could have it fresh in your minds and to discuss it. The period for public engagement in our online open house ended on the 19th of January. And in less than a week, our first bit of analysis from that data is now available. I presented this on Tuesday night to the Regional Plan Committee. And so you're kind of getting this hot off the presses as well. A key point to note is this is our initial analysis, and we have not gone into our data to the point of doing cross tabulations. So some of the more refined or finer grained data is still to come in the next few weeks. But I think there's some high level takeaways that Estella wanted me to make sure to point out and share with you. If you go to the next slide. Our process for scenario choosing was a hybrid process and provided both online and in-person opportunities for feedback. It's designed differently than what some people think of when they hear the word survey. What we actually were trying to do was create a thinking process for participants that raised to the surface their values and maybe even some biases that go along with the values and experiences we have living in Flagstaff, then offer them feedback and information before asking them to choose a scenario. So this process included in person kind of a quiz where people looked at this information about what they wanted, and they got a chance to think about trade-offs and think about their values, and then it provided them a best match, or the feedback part. And the feedback was, here is, of the 4 scenarios we are looking at, the one that matches your values the closest. Then they were given information on the report cards, and then they got to take another quiz that said, of these 4 scenarios, which ones would you rank 1, 2, 3, and 4? So this is a different way of approaching it. And it was interesting to experiment that in person conversations also were qualitatively in a lot of other places, but we did get a lot of feedback in this area. So next slide. Of the quizzes, we had 557 respondents who just took the priorities quiz by themselves. And so about 80% of those then also took the scenario choosing quiz, but some chose to kind of only do part of this. So when we look at this data, we are having to look at it through that lens of that some people provided priorities and didn't choose to also look at the data and go through the scenario process. I think that is just interesting in and of itself. About 20% of the respondents were from the county, however, or they didn't identify where they were from. And at the same time, Melissa Shaw from Coconino County is doing focus groups in the county. So we still have a bit of qualitative data in that arena that we'll be looking at alongside the data we have here. Next slide. So in terms of top priorities for Flagstaff, I don't feel these are very surprising given our dialogue at council and other public forums in the last few years, but housing affordability, reducing our impact on climate change, and better walking and biking are a clear top 3. Other items had support, but less. And it's interesting to kind of see where things fall. Public transit didn't have many fewer, maybe 30 or 40 fewer responses that said it's one of the top priorities. So it came in the group of things that I kind of think of as a close second for the responses. Next slide. After asking about top priorities, knowing that climate change and affordability would be top of mind, we also then asked some more refined questions on those lines. And one of the really interesting things about when we asked about climate goal priorities is people naturally gravitated towards conservation related topics and not necessarily the ones that we really know move the needle on climate change, which is reducing emissions, changing how our built and economic and social systems operate. And so I think there's still some work to do here on communicating how walking and biking trips and energy improvements are really moving, are valued as climate goals. Next slide. We also asked people, given the housing affordability emergency, what are the kind of housing types we should be looking? We know from our 10-year housing plan that we need a good increase in the growth of units in the community to start to become more affordable. And people identified that the missing middle, which is townhomes, duplexes, accessory dwelling units, triplexes, kind of smaller apartments or smaller multifamily, and more compact or smaller lot single family housing had the most support, while the mid-size housing and larger multifamily were chosen less frequently as the type of housing we need in the future. There's still plenty of land zoned in Flagstaff for those kinds of development. And we are doing a land availability and suitability study along with our code analysis project, which is being led by Michelle McNulty and Tiffany Antall, that will be looking at sort of the availability to reach all of these. But this gives us a hint of what the public is looking for in terms of outcomes. Next slide. Walking and biking came out as a very strong priority for our transportation choices, with the second one being public transit service within the city limits as the second highest priority. So next slide. There are a couple more slides like this, and really, I'm not going to go over them in much detail, but I provided you these slides so you can look at them more closely. Some of these have clearer distinctions. These are a set of questions that were about trade-offs that were really pick this or pick this. They didn't give people other options, though we do have some qualitative data that we're starting to look at on why. Of people thinking about growth, thinking about opportunities and trade-offs within growth. So more housing and jobs should be added was slightly more popular in the initial responses than we should be limiting or not taking on growth. Next slide. Same thing with this, that building heights, people were not showing a great appetite or a strong preference to see building heights getting taller as we're talking about the zoning code and regional plan. Next slide. Interesting that the existing neighborhoods, I was kind of surprised by this result because sometimes we hear a lot of neighborhood feedback about what infill looks like. and where it occurs in our community, but seeing more housing options and affordability increases in our existing neighborhoods was a very strong preference. Some of the qualitative things I've looked at here are very clearly say that that's important, and it's also important to be mindful and avoid displacement. Next slide. When we ask people about park services, should we be investing in new parks or the level of service in our existing parks? That one's pretty even. People are split on that. And of course, that'll be one of the challenges as the city and county are working on, well, this county is completed and the city starts working on a parks and recreation master plan. Next slide. In workforce strategies, housing affordability strongly outweighed the need to attract large employers and bring in more high-paying jobs. That goes hand in hand in a way, but this will be good feedback as the economic development staff is working on a master plan for economic development as well. Next slide. So how did this play out? People had a chance to kind of reflect on all these values. In the back end, the software was kind of giving them a score. Most people actually matched to the business as usual scenario, which is actually one we created around the idea that what if we never changed our rules? What if we never rezoned anything? What if we just let what's on the table play out into the future? And then the second one was getting more infill into existing neighborhoods. Now, we normalize this data a little bit, which is interesting as well. So in the next slide, you'll see that when we take into account how strongly people's overall answers, if you can go to the next slide, matched the profile of the scenario. So if scenario D, you needed to answer certain answers on each of those questions you saw before, people who preferred scenarios D and C picked more of the answers that match that scenario than people who chose scenario A, which means maybe their preference was not as strong, or maybe they were mixed in terms of which parts of which scenarios they liked. Next slide. That's something as we dive into the data more, I'll get clearer numbers on soon. But when we also looked at the average score, kind of taking apart everybody's answers and saying, what were the things that got picked the most often, regardless of someone's total score? Neighborhood infill then had an even stronger preference, which is a great growth strategy that we need to then dive into with the committee and the public and talk a lot more about what that might mean for Flagstaff. So next slide. We then, in that next step, people got to look at all these different report cards. And one of the key ones that people talked about a lot when we were doing in-person events was that scenario A, the business as usual scenario, if it plays out the way it is, Flagstaff becomes 54% less affordable than it is today in real dollars and housing affordability. And I found that that was a number that really took a lot of people took in and thought about, and then started to pay more attention and consider the other scenarios. That seemed to be a very impactful one in terms of the conversations we heard and some of the comments we've looked at. Next slide. And so it did influence the outcome. Seeing people seeing the numbers and understanding what choices we have, neighborhood infill, getting more housing in our existing neighborhoods became a stronger first preference. The second preference was seeing full development of our urban centers and corridors. And the third being complete communities, which is greenfield development, and business as usual ranked dead last by the time we got through this process with people. So I think that's really interesting because it surfaces some of the conversations we need to be having. And especially as we're crafting those conversations, getting a better understanding of how people are thinking in the status quo or in a nostalgia mindset, and what it takes in terms of information to get them to think in a more futuristic way about the community and about the kind of choices that we will be making over the next 10 to 20 years. Next slide. Another thing to note, and I don't have all the cross tabs on this, but this correlation was much stronger in the city than in Coconino County residents and those who didn't specify where they lived. I'm very interested to see how this data looks on the east side versus the west side versus the south side of town, and seeing if there's some other geographic differences on how these preferences were stated. And we'll be getting back with that information in a couple weeks. Next slide. So the takeaways. There were strong support in our surveys for housing affordability. That seemed to be a topic that was really moving the needle in terms of what people were willing to consider for strategies and options. Growing in a way that reduces our climate impacts, preserving high-value natural areas, water efficiency, missing middle housing and compact single family, and more and safer options for walking and biking. Those are maybe the clearest priorities we've gotten, and they match the priorities from the survey we did this summer on what are the biggest and most important things we should be consider going into this. So I think it's really impactful that we've gotten these same 6 answers twice with different audiences. And so that's a very useful takeaway for me. If anyone would like to look at the report cards or kind of review what happened or what was available during the open house, I'm happy to put that link in the chat and to send it to Rhonda to share with you all. But that's all I have. I think I got you in about 15 minutes. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much. Yeah, whoever has a question, please jump in.
Thank you, Sarah. This is really fascinating stuff, and I'm really impressed with the process you're going through. 500, 400 responses, it's pretty solid. I'm curious, did the people responding skew in any particular way, you know, from what the census might tell us about our community?
I haven't gotten that far into the data to look at that yet. I can tell you this survey is probably the heaviest feedback we've had from people on the east side of Flagstaff. We had, and we didn't talk about this in this presentation, but some of you may know we used an ambassador process to really empower community members to go talk to their neighbors and talk to people they know in the community. And I think our acknowledged residents of the east side went up by quite a lot using that strategy, where a lot of times other meetings, we get a lot of people who live in central or west Flagstaff and less engagement from the east side. So just geographically, I think this 557 is starting to get more geographically representative than previous ones, but I haven't gotten far enough. It's only been a week, so I haven't gotten far enough down into the data to get all that nitty gritty in it. But if I've got some answers, I'll be happy to email them to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thanks for the information, Sarah. Other questions or comments on this very important summary of the regional plan update, the 2045 update? I have one, Sarah, if I can put you on the spot. The takeaways are very interesting and not surprising, really. From a housing and middle housing standpoint, I guess that's the first and fifth bullet, the affordable housing and the middle housing components. How does all that reconcile with the John Wesley Powell corridor and what was discussed in the existing regional plan? Any changes there, or is it just emphasized? What's your takeaway there?
Right now, my takeaway is that people are more interested in seeing the investments that we're making going into existing neighborhoods. But I think, that John Wesley Powell still has a place, but maybe it's that we don't have the right set of policies for greenfield development to help guide those kinds of new parts of the community. I think actually having the John Wesley Powell specific plan and the different kind of engagement we've done with those property owners in the last 2 years, which has really been led by David Peterson and Michelle McNulty, might give us an alternative way to talk about that kind of greenfield development. So I don't think it's not something the plan will need to address it. But it's interesting that opening up new areas of Flagstaff to development didn't make the top 10 anywhere. Where I think it was a bigger conversation 5 years ago. I'm interested to understand why better as we're digging into the qualitative information.
Yeah, as am I, and thank you so much. And as you pointed out, there certainly has been good progress with the property owners out there talking about the alignment and what is envisioned out there, but a lot of discussion yet to occur. So thank you so much. Any other questions or comments for Sarah?
I have one takeaway just on the transit side of this, if anybody wants
Please.
to share that. For this audience, none of these top 6 priorities say transit, and transit kind of came in the second grouping of priorities. But I think that some of these other ones of focusing on infill, thinking about efficiencies, really support the things in the 5-year plan for Mountain Line of increasing frequency, getting the routes to be a lower wait time, and also improving that customer experience, which I know, and the first mile, last mile piece. I think those all fit very well as complementary policies into this set of priorities. So that's kind of my takeaways. Don't be dismayed that it didn't rise to the top. I think what you're already doing has a really good fit into what we heard from the community about priorities.
Thank you, Sarah. And Carol, you want to jump in on this?
Just briefly, I'm very glad to be a part of this presentation. Having been intimately involved with the last regional plan update, along with Dave, I just find it just marvelous to engage in this conversation, and I appreciate so much all the work that's being done. So thank you very much.
I wonder, Carol, if you or Dave, kind of looking at this last set of information, have any, not that I want you to drag up bad memories, but have any memories of the 2010 to 2013 period of time, and kind of what you were able to take away when we arrived at a place where we had this kind of information, and what was important for the process going forward, since I have you both here, and it would just be interesting to know.
I would offer that without getting into how the plan was formulated, I would say the process of getting there, in my estimation, was really rich, because there were participants from all corners of the community, and we had just dynamic conversations, and got to explore different perspectives and how one scenario might impact another stakeholder group differently. And it was, I thought, really great to have that. And it was all very civil and polite, which was marvelous.
Yeah, this is Dave, and I'll just echo that. And we kind of ended in somewhat the same place. The process, we had multiple scenarios and looked at performance measures, and ended up at first with a very kind of dense, high density scenario, and then looking at political landscape and other things, kind of drew back from that. And so if that is at least the plan that led to business as usual, and we're kind of digging in a little deeper again, because business as usual, I don't think necessarily was able to deliver the plan as conceived. Seems like we're headed in a good direction, and appreciate the work.
Thank you both, and thank you for the time to present today. Please feel free to follow up with me if anyone has questions.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for an excellent summary, and equally thankful for all your efforts orchestrating this process. Very important. So thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda. One consent item, no presentation on this. We just need approval of this, yes?
No, the TAC does not need to take action. It's just an awareness that we will be asking the board to update these rules of procedure according to the staff report, but no action is needed.
Okay, thank you so much. Then we get into the discussion and action items. Is this back to you, Heather?
It is back to me to kick us off. Just hold to face the screen to keep my voice nice and loud for you. So this is the first of our fiscal year 2025 budget messages. This one is specifically a message about our budget and how we approached it. But this is the first in a series of presentations over the next couple of months, mostly done by Josh Stone, Management Services Director. But I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you what was first done as we approached the budget. And I don't have a presentation, but there are three key parts of the message that I have shared in the staff report of our approach to the fiscal year 2025 budget. When we began this process, it was critical to us that we knew we were approaching it from a sustainability aspect. So is what we are going to be looking at proposing sustainable for the life of the tax and or our services? So really important to look at our transit tax revenues, our fund balance projections, and also consider the federal government ongoing support and really the feelings about what they will do next with the bipartisan infrastructure law, because that 5-year law does provide a significant amount of funding to Flagstaff that we use for operational services. So wanted to make sure we're considering our two major revenue sources. Next, we did look at what are inflation factors impacting our budget, the things I can't control. And so there are some examples in the staff report. I wish I could control fuel prices for us all, but I cannot. And we are very dependent upon fuel for everything that we do here. So our budget has to accommodate that rising cost of fuel. Just as one example, electricity is another one. Water services, those are much smaller items. Another one that continues to drive our budget is liability insurance cost. We are anticipating another 25% increase in our liability cost. And that is not a result of incidents or claims. I'm going to keep repeating that because our team does a great job here in mitigating risk and minimizing incidents, but our insurance continues to rise even with all those efforts in place. So we looked at what are the things I can't control, and then we looked at what are the goals of the fiscal year 2025 budget and in future. And so on the second part of your staff report, there are several bullets. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but mostly focused on staffing. We continue to be short in our most crucial position, which is the people who drive the buses. Without buses, I don't have a transportation service. And so continue to be very focused on attracting and then retaining those staff. So Josh is going to go into more detail on that specific budget, our workforce budget, but that was a big goal as we talked about our budget. Secondary to that is improving customer service through improved rider tools, considering fare structure conversations. Free fare has been a conversation we've had, but we're coming back looking at it, maybe not just from a go free, but how do we make other improvements that don't have such a costly impact to our system, to our financial system, sorry. Looking at rider rules to really focus on customer first kind of language. So instead of saying you cannot bring your pet, it can only be service animals, opening that up to allow people to travel with their animals and their pets as long as those pets are under their control. We continue to evaluate in-house staffing versus out-of-house staffing. Where does contract cost us more than having staff? Do we improve reliability? Do we improve quality? And most importantly, can we change our costing strategies? And you can see there's a couple other battery electric buses. The 2024 November election is a big item in our 2025 budget considerations. But I just wanted to set the tone for how we approach 2025's budget process, and then really hopefully provide the backbone of what are going to be the next couple of messages this month and then in the future months about the actual budget items and what we will be proposing in June as adoption. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the 2025 budget message and our approach.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. That's wonderful. Michelle, you have a question or comment?
Yes, hi. This is Michelle James. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how the election in November, with either the continuation of the transit tax or a potential increase, will affect your 2025 budget? Or you really don't know, I guess, so you can't predict? Or could you just go into a little more detail on that? Thanks.
Of course. So the 2025 budget is based on existing funding. Even if we are successful in November of 2024, those revenues would not start being collected until we are midway through the fiscal year at minimum. And it will take us time to build a fund balance quote in that new tax, because to do things that we have identified in Flagstaff in Motion, some of those are capital. So we will have to build out that capital program. And just as one example, a bus is estimated between 18 and 24 months right now. So if I ordered a bus today, I wouldn't even have it for several years. So there's no anticipated immediate impact of a tax, whether it fails or passes in 2024 on the budget we are really proposing, because everything we're proposing is based on current funding sources.
Great. Thank you, Heather.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Michelle. Any other comments or questions? I have a quick one for you, Heather, if you don't mind.
Of course.
We were at a conference last week hearing economic forecasts at the state level. And not to get too off track here, but revenue forecasting, and it's something that's being stated at the retreat that I'm at currently for next fiscal year is projected to be flattening out quite a bit in many sectors. And I'm wondering, is that consistent with, as you're looking ahead to next fiscal year, consistent with your assumptions in the budgeting process?
So a couple of things. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to remind you, we don't get any state revenues.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about state revenues, thankfully. But the city of Flagstaff provides us with our revenue projections that we use in all of our financial planning. So Mountain Line does not actually do a lot of projecting of revenues, because we are really dependent upon the city's transit tax. And as the fiduciary fiscal agent for that, they really provide us with those 5 and 10-year projections. So everything that we're presenting to you is based on the last 5-year update that we got from City of Flagstaff staff in early December. And so I'm going to guess, Greg, I can't say with certainty, Josh is also here, that did include that projection that you are all talking about right now at your retreat. In regards to the federal funds, we really have based all of our assumptions on the BIL, where it stands today, and the anticipation that it would be at least renewed. We don't expect or project to have increased federal revenues. We just do it based on what exists today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And thank you. And, the tie-in to the state is an interesting one. And I guess it falls into the stay tuned category is, with the state's revenues flattening out, what will be the response to allocations that may otherwise go to the locals? Is the state going to burden a shortfall in revenues or a flattening of revenues by passing it on to local governments? And it's something I don't, again, not to belabor, but it's something we should be aware of moving forward, is what is that impact and what would the ripple effect be upon us at the local level? Any other, and thank you for that, Heather, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Good stuff, Heather. Thank you for that. No action item here, right? This is just for information, but I do know there are other discussion items to follow.
Correct.
All right, so I guess it's me. So as Heather said, we're going to start looking at the budget we've developed for the upcoming fiscal year 2025. Hopefully I don't repeat too many of the things that she said, but this is the sort of start of a many months education effort where we break down the budget into various categories and review any proposed or required changes. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more digestible this way instead of spending an entire meeting or day as a budget retreat. But we're not going to ask for any action at this time until we're completed in June. So with that, we're going to move into the workforce component of the budget, which is, of course, really the largest piece of the budget as we invest in our employees. And it's the workforce budget takes about 2/3 of our overall operating budget. Takes up about 2/3 of the overall budget. So we're going to jump right into minimum wage, which is, I'm sure, everyone's favorite subject. I think everyone knows the minimum wage increased in Flagstaff just about a month ago, or I guess it's the first, so exactly a month ago, by 60 cents. The Mountain Line Board of Directors did approve a pay rate change for all hourly staff of 60 cents per hour to keep our base compensation at a reasonable level above minimum wage. This slide is just sort of food for thought to let you know where we're starting at that slightly higher level in the current year's budget. Keeping up the lower end does end up in some amount of compression through the pay ranges, particularly the upper pay ranges, but it's helpful for recruitment of vacancies, which is always can be a bit of a struggle. So next slide, please. We are proposing that the majority of our workforce budget change for the next fiscal year is directly related to wages. So the proposed increase is for wages is $363,226. This increase includes an anniversary increase, an average anniversary increase, I guess, for staff of about 4%. You can see here on the slide that 4.5% is for staff in operations. Operations staff are primarily on step tables that raise up through 10 defined steps over time, just sort of the industry standard for that type of position. And those are the largest percentage of our employees. The administrative staff positions usually typically have open pay ranges, and so there's a little bit more spacing on the or setting on those ranges depending on your experience and qualifications and things. And we've budgeted an anniversary increase at 3%. These anniversary increases are basically what we've had since 2019, I believe. So we're just continuing on with that theme. We have had other adjustments for minimum wage and other things since then during that time, but we've kept on with this just regular pay plan as a regular sort of cost of living adjustment. We will undertake a compensation study of some selected positions this spring. Typically, we try to look at things that we might have trouble recruiting for those positions, or positions that are kind of like a base for each department. And right now, I think we have, it may have just closed actually. We have a recruitment out for a new consultant to assist us with that study work. So there is an amount built into that 363,000 for any adjustments determined that might be needed there. I'll also note that we had a number of retirements of long-term employees in the last year. And that combined with reorganization of positions, of the positions in our org chart, has resulted in a lowering of the average base pay across the entire employee group. So as new employees or those with a shorter tenure kind of fill those vacancies, they're coming in some cases significantly lower than the retirees. So that adds up. That actually helps our cost scenario, where we're not our overall base pay is at a lower amount there. So next slide, please. We have budgeted for the addition of a new holiday, Indigenous Peoples Day. Including this in our holiday list would bring our number of holidays to 13. We currently don't observe any holidays in the month of October. And I believe we would continue to operate service as we do for all of our holidays except for 2. So the budget impact for holidays is mostly related to operations employees working these days who end up being paid double pay for the day. It's their regular pay for however many hours they work, and then they get their 8 hours of holiday pay on top of that. So something to consider there. I think I actually maybe neglected to put that in my staff report now that I think about it. Moving on to overtime. So this fiscal year, 2024, we started with, I don't want to call it an experiment, but sort of an experiment with paying overtime at a double pay rate instead of more traditional time and a half rate. Sort of to realize and recognize that during periods of difficult staffing, this is kind of an extra incentive, recognizing those who take on extra shifts and sort of helping to spread out the workload amongst everyone. Traditionally, we have not budgeted for overtime in a significant amount, as we believe that overtime is related to short staffing and therefore is paid for by the savings of those employees, those vacancies that we have, if you will. So the salaries and benefits for those people that are vacancies. So the 158,000 is kind of recognizing the anticipated difference between hour and a half and time and a half and double time hours. And that's based on historical average of overtime hours the last 3 years. So it's always room for improvement with the number of overtime hours. But, as barring any sort of miracle with filling all the vacancies, we'll probably continue to see some level of overtime for the foreseeable future. So next slide, please. So moving into our insurance benefits. Mountain Line is a participant in NAPEPT, the Northern Arizona Public Employees Benefit Trust, that pools our resources. So our benefits are the the same as the city and the county and FUSD and other employers. Each employer sets their own subsidy to premiums based on their individual budget capacity and needs. But the benefits offered are usually, they're all the same. This year, vision and dental and life insurance are not seeing any premium increases or changes. Mountain Line does pay 100% of the premium for employees with a single person plan for vision and dental and a minimum life insurance policy. Employees can choose to cover, can choose coverage for a partner or additional family members. This is at the employee's cost for these benefits, but is usually fairly minimal for those these lower cost benefits. Medical insurance is where we're seeing a change this year with a budget increase of $44,000. A preliminary increase of 3% was modeled for the NAPEP board. I think the national trend is about 6.5, 6.8% for health insurance. The trust has seen a small decline in enrollment for health insurance and a lower volume of claimants in the past year. So has recommended using some cash available in the claims reserve to reduce the premium increase to 1.5% for all plans offered. So, and then as a reminder for the current fiscal year budget, we did significantly increase this year the employer portion of cost share for employees with additional an additional person or family on their plan. So this, I think, was a helpful decrease in cost that ends up to the employee that ends up in higher take-home pay for these employees. So we plan to continue that at this level, which is similar to the city of Flagstaff and Coconino County's levels. Next slide, please. Is ASRS, Arizona State Retirement System. Mountain Line employees are public employees participating in ASRS, with the exception of a very few employees with a low number of hours are required to enroll in ASRS. There is a small, very, very minor decrease in the rate set by the state this year. The rate does fluctuate a bit each year, but the decrease is fairly insignificant and will basically be offset by the increase in contributions required for increased wages. So there's no, it's kind of a wash there. There's not really a meaningful change from last year to this year. We do also offer an additional deferred compensation plan that employees can voluntarily participate in. Next slide. There's no changes proposed for any of the items on this slide. Mountain Line offers a variety of leave types to promote rest, relaxation, and recuperation when needed. We do offer a variety of recognition and rewards and appreciation events throughout the year. So the budget for all of these types of things is staying the same. We're not really proposing any changes there. Next slide, please. We do offer ongoing training opportunities for staff throughout the year. Staff can also, propose their own training if there's anything in particular that they're interested in or would help contribute to their job development. We do offer an EAP assistance plan. We're offering 12 sessions per year for employees for any needs there. We do offer tool allowance to maintenance staff for gear necessary for their jobs. We offer a variety of wellness activities. We do have a wellness room. At the moment, we do not have a wellness room at the Downtown Connection Center because we have limited space in our temporary facility. But there will be a new wellness room with a variety of equipment and uses once that opens late next spring. Next slide, please. Housing assistance, we're continuing to offer. Right now we have, I think, 7 employees that have had basically down payment assistance for securing housing. And that is basically offered as a reimbursement program. So we will pay someone's down payment to get into housing as needed. And then there's a paycheck deduction to reimburse Mountain Line for that over time. So there's not really a budget impact to us for that, but it's helpful for sometimes the high upfront cost of getting into a new housing situation. We do offer a referral program for any employees referring new hires that fill a vacancy and stay in the position. We offer a stay-on bonus for specifically for new drivers, although that's typically what it's used for, but it's offered to any staff coming into a new hourly position. And then we offer extended paid training for new CDL drivers. So we offer all the training here so they don't need to obtain a CDL at a different location, often at their expense. Next slide, please. All right, so the bottom line increase for our workforce budget is about $407,000. As we said before, which this is primarily direct wages. It's a 7% increase for the overall wages portion of the budget. We have not really made any significant changes to other benefits, perhaps with the exception of the addition of a holiday. The entire workforce budget, which I guess I did not put on here, comes in at 8.6 million of our roughly $12.5 million operating budget. So hopefully that provides a little bit of context for the $407,000 proposed increase. So this is a lot of talking for me because I don't usually talk a lot. So with that, hopefully you might have some questions, or we can end this segment.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Very, very informative. Any questions or comments for Josh? think you're off the hook, Josh.
All right.
Thank you so much. Heather, I want to get to our next progress report. I also want to check in and see how we're doing time-wise. Are we okay?
I think we're okay on time. We have 3 more presentations, but this is the one I anticipated kind of being our most lengthy.
Yep.
So I think we're good on time. Thanks for checking.
Perfect. All right. What is next?
The next item is,
Recruitment and retention, something we're giving a lot of discussion to. I'd love to hear about this.
Good morning, members. Cody Weaver, HR manager. I will be discussing the recruitment and retention. I'm not looking for approval, but I am looking for any thoughts or discussion on the items that we currently have. So I will get right to it. Currently, I want to walk you through some of our recruitment, as we're very aware of the ever-changing and evolving job market that we are currently in. I know many of us here in Flagstaff are seeing it all over. I'm also seeing it in my Society of Human Resource Management of the SHRM world as well, and many others. So these are some of the recruitment options that my HR team, that includes Sam Short and Sheldon Yazzie, that we are currently using to try to capture as many employees as possible. So I'll be going through these lists. Using the job site, we use Indeed, Craigslist, Hire Flagstaff, AZTA, CCTA, and American Planning Association. Now, these are just a couple of the ones that we currently use for our job sightings. As you can see in the next one below, we also participate with school job fairs. This is something that me and Sheldon go to fairly often. You may even see us for some of the members that are here. We participate at NAU, Coconino Community College, Phoenix Truck and Driving School, and Coconino High School School to Work program, which is also a career fair that they have started using at their high school, that we have been invited to start participating to see if we can start capturing mechanics. As we know, in the next couple of quarters, we're going to start seeing mechanics become a real market due to the electric buses that we are soon seeing. Below that, we also have bus advertisements, so the signage on the buses about hiring drivers. We also go through with Navajo Nation, all chapter houses, local government within a 1-hour driving radius. We also go through Department of Economic Security, Goodwill Recruitment Center, Flagstaff Shelter Services, Working Alternatives, which is the reentry population, and Coconino Adult Probation, which is the second chance nonviolent offenders that we look for. And I do have to say that we've hired quite many employees with those two, and they've been actually great employees with us. Is there any questions on our recruitment that we currently use?
This is Carol. I've got a quick question. The Navajo Nation all chapter houses local government within 1-hour driving radius. What does that mean?
That means if they are within 1-hour driving radius, they can mostly make it for their shift. We just put that in just so they have an idea of how far away they are from Flagstaff, because of many of us, myself included, we do not live in Flagstaff. So really, it's just to give them an idea of where they are, how far they are, and if that's a feasible traveling distance.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for that excellent update on recruitment. Much
Not a problem,
appreciated.
Chair Clifton.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and follow into our retention. As many of us are aware, retention has been a difficult one with many employees and employers. As many of you saw in Josh's presentation, the changes that we are making, these are the current retention items that we have, which is the PTO and sellback program. Of course, our healthcare package, medical, dental, and vision provided to us by the fund. ASRS, AFLAC insurance. We also, as Josh has mentioned, we go through the nationwide investment 457B manage of DEFCON. We also have the Mountain Line referral bonus program, which you can earn up to $800. Housing assistance loan. As of right now, we've had 7 people use the housing assistance program. 4 have been repaid and 3 are still working on it. We haven't been tracking how many were for recruitment versus retention, although We would guess 2 were for improvement, 4 for intention. Only 2 were issued close to the start of employee hire date. So we are currently trying to figure out a way of how to better capture this and provide housing loan assistance as our upfront for coming on to Mountain Line. We also offer volunteer hours. We also were approved the 60-cent raise increase. We have training programs. This includes manager training programs. The one below it, relief supervisor programs and mentoring programs. So many of our mentoring programs are offering our operators, our senior operators to give advice and ride-alongs for our new operators coming onto the team. We have what's called kudos cards, as Josh mentioned in his. They are also what we call giving thanks. They also come to me, Sheldon, for collecting any gift cards, so they can have gift cards to any of our local businesses, whether that's Marco's Pizza, some of the Starbucks, Chipotle, and I have to say Chipotle's been a really big one. So I have a feeling we're going to be going back to get more gift cards. But this is our way of telling our drivers and many of our staff members, thank you for doing such a great job. We also have public service loan forgiveness. Now, this has been a new one since the Biden and Harris administration. We have been participating in it. I myself and Sam Short have signed many public service loan forgiveness for many of our employees who are going to school right now. The EAP by Jorgensen and Brooks. We also have stay on bonus, which is $1,500 over 3 installments at 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months. We have an accident-free bonus, annual increases, anniversary recognition programs, quarterly bonus, that's $120, Mountain Line family passes. And at the bottom, we have education and staff training policy. Mountain Line will help team members enroll in courses or seminars to help with professional growth, contribution to division goals. That is all of the retention items. Is there any questions or any thoughts on any of these? Anything that we can add to it as well?
So this is Dave. I don't have a comment on adding to retention, but you have about 3 slides worth of information there. I would recommend split it up into multiple slides. And is there, I mean, if there's any information you have on which are particularly effective, the Chipotle thing is cool, but that would be helpful.
We try to aim when getting the cards, we try to aim to a lot of local businesses as well. So like this, bagels,
That's great.
and whatnot. We get a lot of the local businesses thanking us to provide them transportation for their employees and us giving money back to them and vice versa. So when Sheldon and I go out and do this, we really try to aim at the heart of Flagstaff of our community.
And I just want to make a note because my financial brain has a hard time with telling the world that we give out gift cards because there's tax implications for those of us that know those types of things. These are $5 gift cards, so we're not buying family meals for drivers as a thank you. This is really to offset their cost for lunch or a quick coffee. We try and give gift cards for businesses, especially that are around the downtown connection center, so that they don't have to leave and go somewhere as part of their 1 hour break, but can really go in that walking distance. So I just wanted to clarify. And the reason we have such a long list, as I'm sure we all know, what means something to one employee means nothing to another employee. And so we try to offer a variety of options so that each employee feels very valued in that retention effort and program that we have available.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. And thanks, Dave. Any other, was the suggestion there, because I didn't catch all of it, that this slide be broken up into a couple, 2 or 3 slides?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions, comments, or inputs? Thank you for the excellent presentation there.
Thank you.
Facilities.
Thank you, Chair Clifton, members of TAC, and Gunno, Capital Development Manager. I'd like to give you a brief update on the maintenance facility project. This is just an update for input, feedback. There's no action. Next item, please, or next slide. For a little background, because I think there's some TAC members that might not have heard, this has been a project that we've been developing out of our master plan, this maintenance project. So in 2022, Mountain Line, we developed a master plan for our CASFAR headquarters, which is, as most people are familiar, where we're currently located. And what you're seeing in this slide is essentially phase one. The goal of the master plan was to maximize operational and maintenance functions at this location. Because I think most people are aware, we are building our downtown connection center and there are staff moving downtown that frees up space at this location. So our first priority under the master plan was to develop a new maintenance facility. It's called phase one of the master plan. And what you're looking at here is in the yellow rectangle is the new maintenance facility location, which currently kind of in the faded background, we have an old shop that will be demoed right adjacent to our administrative building, excuse me. That's in that kind of brownish color, and it will have a ramp access from CASFAR, and we'll have parking on top of the maintenance bay. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And what you're looking at here is since our last update, we've been developing plans and a concept. This is actually a side view of the future facility for both phases. So if you're looking at the left side of the drawing, that is really the maintenance bay, those 3 garage doors that tie in with the mezzanine and crossover. And then eventually phase 2 would build a bus storage, which would have all those other garage doors and kind of an area for offices on that one end, but with parking along the top. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So a little bit where we're at with process on the project. We have HDR engaged as our design professional, and they've been working on our concept that was submitted to the city. We did receive some comments that we're just working through. Our next really key step is to really dive into schematic design, which develops the building systems, outlines our sustainability goals, and we have a series of workshops with key stakeholders and the team to go through in the next couple months. But our goal is to submit our site plan to the city in March, which would be followed by a conditional use permit process, which is that would go through city zoning commission. The other kind of key steps that are happening in the background, we are going through as part of our federal requirement. This is a National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA. We're doing our NEPA for the project right now. We have our tribal letters that have been sent out for review. It's just a notification to get their feedback if they have any comments. But we are going through that process, and that needs to be complete really by this spring in order for us to obligate our construction funding. The other piece, key team member we can share is we did award for our construction manager at risk procurement. It went out yesterday to Kinney Construction Services. Kinney Construction will begin working with us on pre-construction with the design team and diving in to help us develop our GMP packages. And, you know, we have a aspirational goal of having maybe some work being done on this campus with utilities, maybe later this year, if we can get far enough with design and permitting. But we need their feedback into that schedule, but we're really excited to have them on board. And then really just diving in, working on the pre-construction with them. So those are the key next steps. And next slide, please, Rhonda. That really concludes my presentation on the status of the maintenance facility. I welcome any questions.
Fascinating. That's good stuff. Any questions? And thank you, by the way, for the excellent presentation.
This is Carol once again. I wanted to offer to here. You can actually see me.
Hi, Carol.
I wanted to suggest that the graphic might have a key on it. It was very difficult to read the text because it was so small on the different colors, you know. The other thing, I think there's just a typo in the background piece. CUP is a conditional use permit. instead
Okay,
of
thank you. Thank
a
you.
condition. Yeah.
I
Thank
will
you, Sarah.
make some corrections for the board presentation.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that. Other questions, comments?
Yeah, this is Dave.
Yeah.
Just perhaps add in the presentation to the board, because it may come up, just where things stand fiscally, on budget, on schedule. Just, I'm working on the tip and looking at the DCC and all the money that's just keeps flowing into that project. So there may be some curiosity as to what's going on in this one too.
Thank you for that, Dave, and really good point. I have it in my staff report under the fiscal section, but I will put a bullet point in there on those two key points, the schedule and the budget overall, so will do. And if for everyone's edification here, this is at this point a fully funded project for design and construction. So we have the construction funds and we are working to stay in that budget that we have. And that information, it's about, I'm using round numbers, about a $20 million construction overall for federal and local budget. And then the design budget is $2 million, which we're currently working on. We have that task order with HDR. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah. And thanks, Dave. Other comments, questions, suggestions? I think it's a wrap. I think we're good to go.
Great.
Thank you. Oh, Downtown Connection Center.
Thank you, Chair Clifton, again, Ann Dunno, Capital Development Manager. This is, again, just an update for the TAC and board, just seeking, feedback, but there is no action. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So great progress on our phase 1 construction of the building. As many of you are aware, we are building, we have demoed the old Home Alternatives building on Phoenix Avenue adjacent to our operational hub, and we are fully underway, and we have some great photos here. Lovin Contracting is our CMAR, and they've made great use of our I guess you could look at it, our good winter weather, frankly, as much as we need snow for all the other reasons we know, but it's been good for construction. We've only lost a few days to weather, which is great. And so what you're seeing in this photo, for example, is a lot of concrete CMU work with the block. Excavations have been happening. They've been doing footings, and so they've essentially completed footings, and they're starting to build the stem wall. What you're looking at in this picture is the ADA ramp that you would approach. You're looking towards Milton Avenue on this one photo on the right, with the various, ramp access up to as, and I'll show you later in a picture, but you can see the first floor is way over to the right with that next layer. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And here, this is a little behind the scenes. This building is a cross-laminated timber wood framed building. So we're really going to see the structure instead of it being hidden behind drywall and, traditional steel and kind of stick built type of environment. You're going to see these cross-laminated beams on the ceilings and the columns inside the walls, and it's going to extend into the outside. So these are in the process of being manufactured right now. What you're looking at is the facility up in near Portland, Oregon. And we are monitoring this progress. It's a key milestone. The arrival of this material should happen. It's supposed to be on site early April. And we're really coordinating closely with Lovin and the city building officials this is the first of its kind of this building in Flagstaff. So it has some nuance on the inspection process, and we're working through that with the city, and they've been a great partner. And it's really going to be a really interesting construction process. So, and I think when the building starts to go really vertical with this, it's going to be really fun to watch. Next slide, please. And these are probably a little bit photos that were even before the last picture, but you can just see that they've been working on bringing the, footing. This is the rest of the building that you're seeing looking back towards the east at the ops hub. But you can really see how, they've just done a ton of work in the last couple of months. Next slide, please. And then here is a picture of Heather Domelin, our design team and contractor team out on site. Heather got to go out the other week and join, which was great. And we're actually standing on they brought in the first floor building pad. So the building is being constructed approximately 6 feet above to stay out of the floodplain, which is, part of the process of building on this site. And you can really tell where they're, relative to the railroad. This is at the first floor, and we're going up another essentially 2 stories, right? It'll be 30 feet above this. So you can see the bridge behind you, the railroad bridge. And when you're up there, you really do feel like you're a little bit above Milton Avenue. It's more in scale with these surrounding structures. So that was a fun day to have everyone meet on site. And next slide, please. So a couple of key steps. So this is again, phase 1 of the DCC project. The next, I developed these slides, we did get our conditional use, not our conditional use permit, our rough grading cert, which will lead us to allow us to get our building permit, which we are going to be putting in for, I think today even, which is great news. They met all on schedule because that was critical. Like I said earlier, we're bringing in the timber in April. We are still on track to meet our certificate of occupancy by May of 25. And we'll be tracking that very closely. Next slide, please. And so, the DCC project is not just the building, it's also our operations hub and civic space that we developed as part of phase 2. And what we're doing is we've actually broken up the phase 2 into 2 phase 2A interim is what we're calling this. And this is really how our operations are going to work during the Rio de Flag City project, which I think most people are aware of. It's the flood control project. And what you're looking at in this snippet is not intended for you to read the details. It's just kind of giving you a general sense of this triangular area where we're going to be putting our buses in our operations. And we're working really closely with city planning and city staff with the Rio project to coordinate. So we'll be ready to be operational with when the Rio, does put a shovel out there, and then we can continue to keep transit whole during that process. So right now, what we're planning to do is we're developing this. Essentially, our operations hub is sort of in this little triangle area you're seeing where buses are laid out. Some of our buses will need to use Phoenix Avenue on the south edge. And so we're working through the city with some discussions around, safety mitigation there. But we're basically developing this as a site plan package, which we need to get to the city, and we anticipate getting this resubmitted to them next week. The other key part of being ready for this interim condition is there is a APS lines, poles that are on the north side of Phoenix Avenue. I'm sure most of you are familiar if you walk that. We need to underground all of those in order for these driveways to work. The poles are in the way, basically. And we do ultimately need to do that work in the big picture for the big picture phase 2. But that is that's a pretty good effort to work with APS, and we've already started that process. So we're going to just keep pushing to be ready by summer of 25. And whether or not, the Rio needs to be at that location, then we just want to feel good that we'll be ready to go when they have, their contractor ready. Next slide, please. As I said, the whole phase 2, what you're seeing in the snippet below is the conditional use permit that was approved as part of our overall project now a couple of years ago. But you can see, our phase 1 building, the operations hub, and then the civic space. And so what's happened with the coordination with the Rio is, as we're coordinating, we found out that we really can't build our ultimate phase 2B until after the Rio is complete. at this location at least. And we're estimating that right now to be around 2028. And our biggest, most immediate step to make sure we're still going to be ready is we need to develop our electrical design, because all of these bays are ideally have electric vehicle charging of some kind, whether it's a pantograph or inductive charging. But we want to make sure we've got the capacity built into the grid with APS. So we needed to get through enough design to kind of, in their process, secure that megawatt power at that location. So we're going to be working on that concurrent with that interim effort with the city. And then related to the civic space, down here in the kind of where the circular design is, park end on the east end. A year and a half ago now, we did do a preliminary concept. We even had a public meeting and got great stakeholder feedback. And this was before we had, we knew more about the trend and tracking of the Rio project. And, you know, since this time, we've identified that essentially the civic space development is on hold because, well, one, in order to do any improvements on that civic space with that are, and many of them would have been what they call, you know, building in the floodway, you know, more than just flat work. You're limited until the Rio de Flag project is done, but also the floodplain mapping is remapped. And that potentially could be after the Rio de Flag is done. So there's a time lag there. So at this point, you know, we're kind of holding that civic space development, and we'll just kind of focus on the ops portion of it for now, to be ready for the Rio and to secure our electrical kind of capacity. And we will be bringing our ops hub ultimate design to a 60% level to just get enough review from key stakeholders at the city and at the Army Corps. And then we're going to, you know, sit on that design essentially as well, because obviously we can't build it for quite a few years. Next slide, please. Okay, and that concludes my presentation, and don't know if there's any questions or feedback.
Just a quick
Thank you,
comment.
Anne.
Just a quick comment.
It's definitely a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? Okay, I think there was a question there. I'm sorry if I talked over somebody.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge that this project and the maintenance facility are both very complex, and we're really lucky to have Anne managing those. So.
Yeah, I think all of us would echo that comment. Thank you so much. It's good stuff, and it's exciting as to what's happening, and it's exciting as to what lies ahead. Wonderful presentation. I think you're going to get a lot of feedback on that. Heather, what is next in the queue?
We are ready to move to current events.
I'm sorry.
Just offer. Somebody say something.
Just a quick comment on that presentation.
Please, Carol, I'm sorry I didn't give you time. Yeah, jump in.
No, I didn't get my hand raised. I just wanted to say Rio de Flag is traditionally written with a small d, so you might want to double check that and make sure it's presented appropriately. Minor. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I'm wondering if I could send my city manager reports to you before I get them out to council. It's wonderful to have somebody who's looking at that. I always have mistakes, so thanks for catching that stuff.
All right, so if we're ready, we'll move on to current events. But just a reminder that if there was any item in a progress report, the topic or question on the progress report, please let us know. We're happy to attempt to answer those questions, or we can put those on a future agenda. We try to use progress reports to give you information that we think you might be interested in learning about, knowing about, but that's not as exciting to present on like our DCC or maintenance project. So I just have a couple current events. Most of them are on slides here today, but I wanted to share with you first. I have been busy at the state of Arizona Capitol buildings in the last couple of weeks. Our efforts at the state is mostly to educate our elected officials about the importance of funding for transit from the state of Arizona. But we're really there with some of our transportation partners. So we're there speaking on 2 bills that have been dropped in the House side. They actually have both been heard by the House and moved on with unanimous support or near unanimous support. One of them is a measure that the state put into place over a year ago to fund rural transportation projects, and applicants that are eligible for federal transportation projects can apply for match for those projects through this fund. They call it the SMART Fund. When that funding was introduced and approved, it made that funding available to cities and counties, but it left out transit and it left out tribal. And one of the challenges of that is you must be the federal applicant to also be the applicant for these SMART funds. So in the case of the city of Flagstaff and Mountain Line, the city cannot apply to the SMART Fund to match Mountain Line's federal applications. And so we worked really hard with the governor's office and with ADOT to modify that language to include tribal and transit. There's other language changes that they have made that we support, but I'm happy to report we were very successful in at least getting it through its first committee hearing with no nays. I actually went down and testified, and it was an amazing experience. And we're very appreciative of the support we're receiving around the state for that measure that really, I want to acknowledge MetroPlan has led that effort to get that language updated. Second measure that we are working on is the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council dropped a bill. It does contain many, many projects around rural Arizona, and under the state, Flagstaff falls under that rural umbrella. So we, along with the city and the county, have 3 asks of funding from this bill. MetroPlan did that call for projects. The bill has made it through its first committee hearing as well. I believe the total ask of projects is near $40 million. The state is telling everyone they don't have any money, but we do appreciate the support to at least move that bill to the budget discussion. So our efforts are to educate about the importance of projects, and we're grateful for MetroPlan in including us in that. If we are successful, it would provide half of the local match needed for our Caspar maintenance facility, reducing the city contribution from $4 million to $2 million. And that is just would be a great thing for us to do in regards to our fund balance. Other than that, I'll go into just a quick couple of things. I want to share with you another update on an important project. This also is an AM project. This one is nearing completion, and you can see from the images, it looks like a parking lot. Well, it's actually our CDL training and testing facility, and I have a video to share with you that I think is interesting. So we're going to have to switch screens. So 1 second.
Go back to sharing. Yeah, so
Oh, we have to see this side. It's all right. Yeah, but I got it.
Right.
Oh, there it is.
Just a refresh because we had it.
So Chair Clifton, can you see the video? So I apologize. I don't think you all could hear the really awesome background music on that.
Yeah.
You could?
Yeah, and it was fantastic. And I have to say, major props to you and everybody who put this together. You have managed to make the pouring of concrete slabs of really high interest. That was wonderful.
That was all thanks to Kin Construction Services. They shared that video and I have myself watched it. I don't know how many times because I find it fascinating. So really gives you an idea of the magnitude of that project because we keep talking about the CDL course. It's 3 lanes of concrete. It's not very interesting, but I think that gives you a very clear view of the magnitude of the work that's being done there. In the image that's on the lower right-hand side of the screen right now, you can see the bars hanging down with the chain between them. I will tell you that is the power line that is creating some delays in opening this. So the next time we have these pictures, hopefully that power line won't be as visible and we will be planning our groundbreaking on this, our ribbon cutting on this facility soon. So I just wanted to share that video because I thought it was interesting and to give you a couple looks at the video or the images of that CDL course and the progress to date.
Good stuff. Excellent. Any feedback on that?
I have a couple more, so hang on 1 second.
Okay, please.
Okay, so we internally have, we're embarking on a new adventure here at Mountain Lion where we are going to be asking our own staff to go out and be Mountain Lion customers. And to facilitate that, Ty Holiday, who works with our planners, has developed this this tool that we can all go out and use in the field. And the goal of it is to improve our customer first focus. So this allows us to see what using transit is like as our transit customers planning a trip, taking the trip, etc. And I want to express my gratitude to the team, really Jackie, who brought this forward after a marketing conference, and Ty and Busy and Estella, who have all participated in really discussing and developing this. I think Busy and Ty were key in the development of this solution. So I'm very excited, and we'll be presenting updates at future meetings. Refresher training. This is something I have been discussing with you, the TAC and board, for over a year now. It came up in our last employee survey. It was repeated in the most recent survey, and I'm very excited to report that our scheduler, Ken Lisinski, has confirmed for me that next month we will start refresher training. So 20 dedicated hours throughout the month will result in 30 of our 38 staff being fully refreshed. And those 8 staff have already gone through this training within the last year because they are our newest set of employees. So very excited to get that done and very appreciative of Ken Lisinski, who really works to create these schedules and make this happen as part of their shifts. I did receive a report from David Doss, our operations manager, and Sam Short, our workforce director and also safety manager, that reducing our overtime demand is showing up in the numbers. So you can see here the number of accidents that we have had at different periods of time. The first 2, we had mandatory overtime in those time slots, and you can see with the service reduction introduced in November that allowed us to reduce that demand of overtime, even though we're at our lowest driver count to date. You can see we're having less accidents. So we know that the overtime contributes to the cost of accidents. Accident free, something we talk about a lot, and it was in both Josh's presentation and in Cody's presentation that we offer an accident free bonus. Wanted to give you the magnitude of that: 38,000 service hours, 478,000 service miles, and 38 staff had 0 accidents performing those services. And we are very excited to celebrate them and offer them their first of 2 bonuses that are available this fiscal year. We have 4 more staff members that have achieved 100% in their behind the wheel evaluations. We call this the 100 Club. So this is where we do video reviews of driver performance in the field. They don't know what day we're going to pull. They don't know what route they're going to be on when we pull it. And I'm excited to show this, but I put the years of service in there because I wanted to demonstrate it's across the board with years of experience to demonstrate that this is the efforts of our training team, and this is evidence of refresher training paying off. Staff stay attentive to the things that make them safe and efficient operators. I do have 2 other anniversaries to share with you. These are just generic monthly anniversaries. Joshua Reynolds is on the left side. Joshua, on many occasions, has shown his dedication to Mountain Line through his continued development as an operator addressing changes in policy, scheduling, and ever-changing safety conditions. He has a proven track record of safety operating all of our vehicles, including our new battery electric buses, in the safe manner. And Marvin Chi on the right-hand side, it's really hard to imagine that Marvin has been with us for 11 years. He continues to show up to work on time. He does his work excellently and quietly slips out and goes home. He seldom requires attention and he performs his job at a high level with little supervision. He's truly a valued asset to our Mountain Line team. And with that, that concludes my current events to share with you today.
Oh, thank you. And thanks to Joshua and Marvin. Congratulations. Good stuff, Heather. Thank you. I guess we're on to the next meeting.
It's just a brief preview of things that we have potentially put on an agenda. But again, if you have thoughts, suggestions, concerns that you would like us to put on agenda, please let us know.
Great. Any input on this? I think acquiescence here by silence. Heather, it looks good to go. Thank you so much. And it looks like we're heading toward adjournment and we're good on timing, yes?
Yes, we are 10 minutes early. Thank you all.
Yeah, and real fast, want to thank Jackie and anybody who accompanied Jackie on her presence at our employee function last week. It was great to have Mountain Line there. Thanks to the team. Rhonda, thanks for your orchestration as always. And any comments before we get on with other stuff today and adjourn from this meeting?
Thank you all very much. Learned a lot.
Indeed. Thank you all. And I think we are adjourned, and enjoy the rest of your day. Get ready for a little bit of snow.
Thank you.